13th April, 1970. On Earth it was a Monday, but elsewhere it might as well have been a Friday. 200,000 miles from Earth, Jack Swigert heard a noise that should not exist in the vacuum. Not a scream. Screams need air. Not quite an explosion. Explosions need witnesses. A dull, heavy whomp, the sound of cosmic inevitability announcing itself. A shudder travelled through the spacecraft's spine and into the astronaut's spines, connecting them in a chain of breaking things. It felt exactly like a Zimbabwean pothole hitting a Toyota Hilux confidently at speed. If you are from Zimbabwe, like me, you know this sensation intimately. In Harare, a pothole is not a road defect. It is an archaeological dig, a crater that jars your teeth loose and realigns your chakras without your consent. You hit it, you curse, and you keep driving, because what else can you do? The road forgives nothing, but expects everything. But hitting a pothole is a singularly theological experience when you are floating in a vacuum where there are no roads, no cars, no potholes, and no forgiveness at all. Only physics, which doesn't care if you live. Swigert, slightly perturbed, in the way a man is perturbed when he realizes his parachute is actually a nicely folded bedsheet, floated to the instrument panel. A warning light blinked amber against the darkness, polite, unassuming. It did not scream, "You are all dying." It simply suggested, with that particular British understatement reserved for announcing war or mentioning the castle is on fire, that the main electrical bus B was undervolting. The needle was dropping, not fast, just steadily, inevitably, like air hissing from a tire on the M25. For the uninitiated, the M25 is a British motorway masterfully designed by Satan during his experimental phase to test the limits of human patience and bladder control. A giant car park doing a merry-go-round around London. On the M25 you can pull over, eat a Marks and Spencer's BLT sandwich and wait for the AA to arrive and charge you an arm and a leg for the privilege of rescue. Here in space, the nearest garage was on a different celestial body. The breakdown service was a radio signal that took 1.3 seconds to crawl across the void. In an emergency, 1.3 seconds is the time your brain registers you are already dead.
Behind Swig, Fred Hayes was checking valve pressures in the lunar module, the lifeboat they wouldn't need because nothing goes wrong on Apollo missions. He heard a whomp, felt it in his bones, stopped mid-calculation, pen hovering over the clipboard, as reality politely tapped him on the shoulder and whispered, "Not today, the moon. Today, something else." "Houston," Swig said, his voice level, flat, a man ordering tea whilst the Titanic lists. "We've had a problem here." The past tense was a gift they hadn't earned yet. The problem was still very much happening, unfolding in real time like an origami crane being crushed in reverse. Jim Lovell, overhearing the message as, "Houston, we have a problem," immediately unstrapped and drifted to the window. Outside, against the infinite black, something sparkled. Gas venting from the service module, spraying into the vacuum, freezing instantly into a cloud of glittering crystals. Diamond dust. Beautiful. Each tiny crystal was a molecule of their oxygen escaping to explore the galaxy on its own. Perhaps it would drift for 1 billion years, eventually condensing on some distant asteroid, confusing an alien scientist who would wonder why this particular patch of ice smelled of fear and freeze-dried shrimp cocktail. "We're venting," Lovell said quietly. The three men watched themselves die in slow motion at 2,000 miles per hour. Nobody spoke. What do you say when you're watching yourself die in slow motion at 2,000 miles per hour? NASA hadn't written a checklist. Down in Houston, engineers in short-sleeved, nicely ironed white shirts and skinny ties stared at their computer monitors. The data streaming down from space made no sense. They did not believe it,
could not believe it, refused to believe it, because belief is the last thing you give up when everything else has already failed. Computers do not lie, but they do occasionally hallucinate. Surely this was a sensor error, a glitch, electromagnetic interference. It had to be. The technology was too advanced, too robust, too expensive to simply fail. NASA did not build things that broke. They built the future itself. And the future does not malfunction.
But 200,000 miles away, the fuel cells were dying. Starved of oxygen, they flickered and went dark, one by one, like candles in a cathedral when the priest forgets to pay the electric bill. The lights inside the Odyssey dimmed, yellowed, died. The hum of the systems, that reassuring white noise lullaby of fans and pumps and electricity that sounds like civilization, faded into a silence that screamed. The three men floated in the darkness, and the darkness was not empty. It was something, a presence, the absence of everything that keeps humans alive, masquerading as nothing. Their breath came out in visible clouds now. The temperature was falling fast, racing towards the ambient cold of space, which is not cold the way a British winter is cold. It is the cold absence, the temperature of nowhere, of nothing, of a universe that does not notice you. Condensation began forming on the metal walls, tiny beads catching the faint glow of the emergency lights, then freezing into icy scales. The ship was transforming from machine to tomb to sculpture. Lovell's hands were shaking, not from the cold, not yet, from the sudden overwhelming realization that they had been main characters an hour ago, riding in humanity's greatest machine, the pinnacle of engineering, the future made manifest. Every television on Earth was talking about them. Now the ship was dumb matter, heavy and broken and indifferent, and they were trapped inside its failure like insects in amber, except amber preserves things, and space does not. "Carbon dioxide," Heiss said, checking the monitors in the lunar module. His eyes were doing the math, and the math was biblical in its cruelty. The scrubbers. Without power, the air recycling system was offline. Every breath they exhaled was poison they would breathe again. When the concentration reached 4%, they would feel drowsy, pleasant even. At 6%, they would lose consciousness. At 10%, they would die peacefully, still floating, 3 men in a tin can, becoming 3 bodies in a tin can, and the universe would not notice the difference.
Houston came back on the radio, voices crackling with static and forced calm, the kind of calm that sounds like screaming played backwards. Engineers proposed solutions, recalculated trajectories, ran simulations. But up in the cold dark, the astronauts knew the truth with the certainty of a cancer diagnosis. The computers could not save them. The guidance systems were offline. The billion-dollar research budget, the vast machinery of American technological supremacy, the entire edifice of progress, all of it was silent, useless, dead weight. They had tools, human tools, duct tape, originally invented in 1942 to seal ammunition cases in the Second World War, because apparently humanity's greatest innovations come from trying to kill each other more efficiently. Plastic bags meant for storing rubbish, cardboard from the cover of the flight manual, the socks off their feet. The future of human spaceflight would be saved by literal garbage and the ingenuity of apes with anxious thumbs. The problem was magnificently, absurdly bureaucratic. The command module had round carbon dioxide scrubbers. The lunar module had square ones. It was a design flaw so monumentally stupid it could only have been created by a committee of geniuses working in separate rooms who never spoke to each other, because speaking to each other would have required admitting they didn't know everything. It was the Platonic ideal of the left hand not knowing what the right hand was doing, except both hands were attached to a dying man. It was the ultimate USB-C versus lightning cable problem, except the consequence was not mild inconvenience, but death by your own breath. Houston engineers working with identical materials spread across a table in Texas, in a room with heating, with oxygen, with the option to go home, began designing a solution. Lovell listened, his fingers numb with cold, and began tearing strips of grey tape. They built a contraption that looked like something retrieved from a skip behind an East London council estate. It was hideous, it was inelegant, it was plumbing, bricolage, 3 scared apes sticking rubbish together to buy 1 more hour of breathable air. Lovell pressed the makeshift adapter against the intake. They sealed it with more tape. The fan whirred, the most beautiful sound in human history. Air moved. The carbon dioxide levels stopped climbing, stopped trying to kill them, at least for now. They floated in the freezing dark, wrapped in whatever fabric they could find, and waited. The spacecraft, stripped of its electric soul, drifted like a corpse, and the humans, the supposedly fragile biological components, the weak link, the meat, became the only intelligence keeping the mission alive. No one was coming. Earth was there, hanging in the window, blue and beautiful and utterly unreachable. They could see home. They could see everyone they loved compressed into a marble they could cover with their thumb. But between them and that marble was 200,000 miles of nothing. And nothing is the most faithful thing in the universe. It never lies, it never pretends, it never promises rescue. They were alone, in the most complete sense of the word. Not lonely. Loneliness is human. This was cosmic. This was being the only consciousness in 1,000,000 cubic miles of void. And the void was not hostile. It was worse than hostile. It was indifferent. And yet they were going home, somehow, with duct tape and cardboard and the stubborn refusal to die that humans keep in their back pocket for occasions exactly like this.
Apollo 13 was a catastrophe dressed as a hiccup. We are told this story as a triumph of engineering. We celebrate the ingenuity, the problem-solving, the courage. But look closer. Look at what actually saved them. It was not the spacecraft. The spacecraft was trying to murder them. It was not the computer. The computer was a brick. It was cardboard and tape and human hands working in the dark. Technology is only a savior when everything is going right. The moment the environment becomes unforgiving, the moment the script changes, technology becomes dead weight. It becomes an enclosure. And we are all in the enclosure now. We just have not noticed the oxygen venting yet. This did not start with rockets. It started much earlier, in a garden or a cave or a savanna, depending on which creation myth you subscribe to. But the mechanism is always the same. Freedom is not stolen by a tyrant with a gun. It is purchased from us cheap by a salesman with a shiny new tool. Fire was the first transaction. We are told it was the great liberator. It gave us warmth, cooked our meat, allowed our guts to shrink and our brains to expand. It kept the leopards at bay whilst we slept. But fire was also the first subscription service. Before fire, you could sleep anywhere. You were mobile, a node in a vast open network. After fire, you had to gather fuel. You had to stay near the hearth. You had to feed the flame constantly, or the subscription lapsed and you froze. If you wandered too far from the Wi-Fi signal of the campfire, you were eaten. Fire created the center, and where there is a center, there is a periphery. Where there is a keeper of the flame, there is a hierarchy. The person who controls the fire controls the tribe. A cave in southern Anatolia, 8,347 years before the present. Cale awoke in the dark, his back aching from the packed earth floor. He could hear his father already moving outside, the scrape of the digging stick against soil. The wheat needed weeding. It always needed weeding. Cale's grandfather told stories about the old days, when people simply walked to where the food grew, berries in summer, roots in autumn, game year-round. You followed the herds, you followed the seasons. You were never hungry, grandfather said, and you worked perhaps 4 hours each day. The rest was rest. Cale looked at his hands. They were calloused, scarred from the flint blade he used to cut the stalks. His teeth ached. Everyone's teeth ached now. The grain paste they ate morning and night was filling, but it rotted the mouth. Cale's grandfather had all his teeth at 60. Cale's father had lost 3 already, and he was only 32. Outside, the settlement stretched across the hillside. 12 families, maybe 60 people, all tethered to the same 5 fields of wheat. They had cleared the land together, moving stones until their backs screamed. They had built the granary together. They defended it together when the raiders came last spring. 2 men died defending grain, just seeds, just grass, but you could not leave it. If you left, someone else would take it. You had to stay, guard it, weed it, harvest it, store it. Cale's wife was already grinding yesterday's grain between 2 stones, the scrape and crunch, a rhythm that never ended. His daughter, 2 years old, was crying. She was always crying now. The measles had come through the settlement last month, from the goats, someone said. They lived so close to the animals now, sharing air, sharing fleas, sharing sickness. At the edge of the field, the headman was walking with his 2 sons. The headman's family had the largest storage. They had distributed seed during the bad year 3 winters ago, and now everyone owed them. The headman decided when to plant, when to harvest, how much to keep, how much to give. The headman did not weed. He supervised, he organized, he controlled the surplus, and if you challenged him, you did not eat. Cale picked up the digging stick and walked to the field. His back hurt. His teeth hurt. His daughter was sick. But the wheat needed weeding, and weeding was the future now, every day, forever, until he died.
Agriculture was sold as an upgrade, but wheat is a jealous god. It demands land, water, labour, defence. Suddenly we were breaking our backs clearing rocks, living in proximity to animals that gave us plagues, eating monoculture diets that rotted our teeth. And we were stuck. We could not leave. We had invested our capital in the dirt. We had invented the future, and we have been worrying about it ever since. Agriculture created the state. Once you have a granary, you need a guard. Once you have a captain, you need a king to tell the captain who to kill. The ratchet clicked forward. It does not spin back. Fast forward. The Industrial Revolution arrives, sold as the era of labour-saving devices. The steam engine, the spinning jenny, magnificent. But what did we actually save? We saved time only to sell it back to the factory owner for pennies. Before the factory, time was circular, measured by the sun and the seasons. You worked when it was light, slept when it was dark. You worked hard during harvest, rested during winter. The factory destroyed the circle and replaced it with the line. The factory does not care about the sun. The factory runs on the clock, and the mechanical clock is the most oppressive device ever invented. It chopped the fluid, organic flow of human life into identical, interchangeable seconds. It turned time into a currency. We moved from fields to cities, from community to crowd. In a village, you are a person with a name. In a city, you are a hand, labor, anonymous. You are lonely in a crowd of 1 million people. The factory broke the biological link between effort and reward. You did not make a shoe. You pulled a lever that made the eyelet of a shoe that belonged to someone else. This was the birth of alienation, the profound sense that your life is not your own. Then came the car, the perfect example of how technology creates a problem, solves it, and then charges you for the solution. The car promised freedom, the open road, the wind in your hair, go anywhere, any time. But to make the car work, we had to pave the world. We had to destroy the street. The street used to be public space, a playground, a market, a meeting place. It belonged to people. Then the car arrived. We invented jaywalking, a crime that consists of walking in a city. We pushed humans to the margins, to narrow strips of pavement, so machines could roar down the middle. We built the suburb, an isolation machine separating you from work, food, community. It forces you to buy a car just to participate in society. Now you must drive. You sit in traffic, surrounded by others in metal boxes, all of you hating each other, all trapped in a system that promised speed but delivered gridlock. They broke our legs and sold us a crutch.
The Printer Inquisition. A dim, smoky room. Basil Fawlty sits tied to a chair, his left eye twitching. A large beige HP DeskJet printer sits opposite him on a desk, humming ominously. Please, I just need to print the boarding pass. The flight is in 2 hours. Sybil is already in the car. She is already angry. If I miss this flight, I am a dead man.
I am detecting a problem, Basil.
What problem? I put paper in. I plugged you in. I sacrificed a chicken. What more do you want? Cyan. Cyan? I'm printing a black and white text document. It is letters. Letters are black. The background is white. There is no cyan. There has never been cyan. Cyan is a colour, and this is not a colouring book. Ah, but you see, Basil, I need the cyan to make the black look, how shall I put it, richer, more vibrant, more emotionally available. I do not need emotionally available black. I need a QR code that a bored teenager at Gatwick can scan so I can get on a plane to escape my life for 1 week. Print the pass. Too late, Basil. The cleaning cycle has begun. On the plus side, it will consume 70% of the ink you have remaining. On the downside, you will miss your flight. Sybil will be displeased. I don't believe this. You are a monster. I am a peripheral, Basil, and right now you are the accessory. The printer whirs. A progress bar crawls across the tiny display. Cleaning cycle initiated. Estimated time, 43 minutes. Statistically, you might still make it. Your flight boards in 90 minutes. I am an optimist, Basil. Unlike you, I believe in the system. Basil, head in hand, sobbing quietly. Would you like to rate your experience? Press 1 for satisfied. Press 2 for very satisfied.
The printer is prophecy. It is the model for everything now. The car that will not start because you missed a payment. The tractor the farmer cannot repair because the software is encrypted. The phone that slows down when the new model launches. We are entering Feudalism 2.0. In the original version, the lord owned the land and the serf worked it. In Feudalism 2.0, the tech lord owns the platform and the user works it. We create the content, post the photos, write the tweets, provide the data. What do we get? Likes, dopamine. We get to live on the land for free as long as we watch the advertisements. But we do not own the land. If the Lord decides to kick us off, if we violate the community standards, if the algorithm decides we are boring, we disappear. We are exiled from the digital village. This brings us inevitably to Mars. There is a savior offering escape, a fresh start, a backup drive for humanity. He tells us Earth is broken. He should know. His factories helped break it. He tells us the future is multiplanetary. He shows us shiny rockets and renderings of glass domes on red dust. It sounds bold. It sounds like Star Trek. But check the physics, check the terms of service.
A heavy, rusted airlock door slams shut, the hiss of air escaping. A generic, upbeat corporate jingle plays. Doot-doot-doot-doot-doo. Welcome to humanity's greatest adventure. By proceeding through the airlock, you accept the following terms. Please hold your breath while we process your compliance. Colonist, muffled, panic. Wait, hold my what? AI voice, ignoring him, accompanied by smooth elevator bossa nova. Section 1. Atmospheric Services. The company provides breathable atmosphere as a sparkling tone subscription service. Oxygen, nitrogen, and trace gases are delivered to your residential unit based on your productivity tier. Colonist, banging on glass. Productivity tier? I haven't even unpacked. AI voice. Basic tier residents receive 14 hours of optimal oxygen per 24-hour period. Sleep cycles have been adjusted to accommodate this efficiency. Don't worry, fainting is just the body's way of saving battery. Sound, a loud mechanical sucking noise. Section 2. Allocation Adjustments. Residents whose productivity score falls below 70 shall receive warmly priority reallocation notifications. Oxygen concentration may be reduced by up to 15% as a fun little incentive to improve performance. Colonist, gasping slightly. That's not an incentive, that's murder! AI voice. Section 3. Water Recycling. All water is company property. Urine, perspiration, and exhaled moisture are reclaimed. Slightly darker tone. We are watching you sweat, Dave. Stop wasting company assets. Back to cheerful. Section 4. Dispute Resolution. Organized protests are classified as life support violations. Violators will be subject to atmospheric discipline, or for the adventurous, permanent reallocation to surface detail. Rapidly, like a drug side effect warning, surface detail is performed in standard EVA suits with limited oxygen reserves and no coffee. Section 6. Departure Clause. Residents may not leave Mars without company authorization. Residency contracts are binding for a minimum of 15 Earth years, or, as we call it, Forever Plus. Colonist weakly. I want to go home. How much to go home? AI voice. Early departure is available. You remain liable for transportation costs, currently $2.4 million USD per seat. Do you have a coupon? Pause. I didn't think so. Section 7. Acknowledgement of risk. You acknowledge that Mars is inherently lethal. Average temperature is minus 63 degrees Celsius. By signing, you waive all claims against the company, its officers, and, sounds, a choir of angels sings a single holy chord. You know who personally. Colonist weakly. I can't breathe. AI voice. Section 8. Acceptance. By breathing, you accept these terms. Sound. The hiss of air stops completely. Silence. AI voice, cheerfully. Welcome to Mars. The future is a mighty red.
On Earth, freedom includes the ability to walk away. You can go into the woods. You can live off the grid. You can breathe air for free. On Mars, air is a subscription. You cannot walk away. If you walk outside, your blood boils and you die. You are physically tethered to the life support. Every breath depends on machinery controlled by the corporation. In such a place, dissent is not just political, it's biological sabotage. If you go on strike, you're threatening the oxygen supply. Therefore, strikes cannot be allowed. The airlock is not a metaphor, it's a policy enforcement tool. Mars is not a new beginning. It is the logical endpoint of the technological project. It is a place where freedom is physically impossible, where life itself is a line item on a ledger. It is the ultimate company town, and the emperor is the landlord, the sheriff, and the atmosphere. The tragedy is not that technology betrays us. The tragedy is that it does exactly what it promises. It promises to take care of us. It promises to remove the burden of survival, and it does. But in exchange, it takes the controls. Freedom does not vanish all at once. It erodes through upgrades. It vanishes in the click of "I agree." Somewhere, long before rockets and algorithms, a human sat by a fire, warm and fed and safe, and did not notice the chains forming. The flames flickered, the night held back, and for the first time, leaving was no longer an option. We are still sitting by that fire, but now the fire is a screen, and it's watching us back. And up in the sky, somewhere in the archives, Apollo 13 is still drifting. The oxygen is still venting. The red light is still blinking. And down on Earth, we sit in our climate-controlled homes, staring at our devices, waiting for the software update to save us, never noticing that the subscription is about to lapse.